partnership with parents and the community, Birmingham Public Schools will provide an educational excellence that empowers students to cultivate their individual brilliance and positively impact the world.
Good evening. Tonight is March 19th, 2024. Welcome to the Birmingham Public Schools Board of Education meeting. Our first order of business is roll call. Tracy?
Present.
Here.
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 Thank you. Thank you. Right now, I would like to ask Mrs. McKinney to read our norms and vision statement.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Our vision statement is all students in Birmingham will realize their full potential, think critically, and champion an innovative tomorrow. Our board norms are be respectful and reflective, be prepared, no surprises, ask questions and seek to understand opinions, assume positive intent, understand and respect the role of trustees.
Thank you, Trustee McKinney. And now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Roberson for recognition and welcome all of our guests who are here tonight.
Of you who are watching on television, we have a full house, and it's always great to see a number of students in the audience. We're going to start our recognitions with celebrating our Regional Scholastic Art Awards, and if I can have Principal Wicker from Seaholm come to the podium, please.
Good evening. Groves and Seaholm are blessed with talented art teachers and talented art students in many different mediums. We have Mr. Fink and Ms. Moyer here to recognize some of our top artists this year.
I'd just like to thank the Board of Education for recognizing these amazing art students, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to congratulate them once again on these highly regarded awards. The Scholastic Art and Writing Awards is an annual competition in which students from all over the country enter artwork in hopes of being chosen. Their work's judged on both skill and technique as well as artistic voice. Receiving an award is difficult and means that trained judges saw promise in the art. It's a sincere pleasure to be able to work with these awesome students. You can see some of the award-winning pieces.
These are unreal. These are unreal.
It started there.
Okay. I don't know, should we call the students out?
Yeah, are the students there?
I
Yes.
think some of them are.
Can you call them up, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we get any of the students who participated in Scholastic to come up and receive your glory?
Maddie Jackson.
If parents would like parents to come up and take pictures.
And do you guys want to tell us your names just so we can put, a face to the art? If you would just tell us?
Come on up and just say your name.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Autumn DeGroot.
I'm Maddie McDonald.
I'm Jackson Ambrose.
I'm Anna Levy.
I'm Lily Roble.
Can we have a picture?
And if there are any parents of the art students that want to come up and take pictures, come right in the middle.
We got it.
I don't know if Mr. Wicker and Dr. Smith want to come in. Rose and sit on stage.
Thank you.
And if you can go.
Okay.
and you can keep going.
Thank you for having us here this evening. I'm Susan Smith, very proud principal at Groves High School, and we have several different groups we'd like to recognize this evening. First, we would like to start with our back-to-back state champion men's swim team. So I'd like to invite all of our swimmers forward. Come on up, guys.
Come on, guys, don't be shy. Come on, you earned this. You earned it.
You absolutely have earned it, and I want to introduce to you our first-year head coach and let him say a little bit about the team and the wonderful season they had.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Felice. I just want to start off by saying thank you to the district, school athletic department for giving me a chance to work with such an amazing group of boys. Coming into this year was definitely a little different than any other coaching job I've ever came into. Right away, I could tell that these guys were really focused with one goal in mind, to bring home another state title. Through ups and downs all season, losing dual meets, not winning league meet, not winning county meets, they did an incredible job staying focused on our main goal and objective at the end of the year. And as much as you guys want to thank me, this is 110% on these boys for digging their feet in and working as hard as they did all year. Thank you.
I do just want to recognize, I'm a little biased, obviously, to this team, but these athletes practice all through their holiday break between Christmas holiday and New Year's and all of their February breaks. So the dedication that they have to the sport is unwavering.
Don't they practice sometimes twice a day?
Yes, and twice a day.
Twice a day?
I think instead of saying digging in, they should have said diving in.
Congratulations.
The next student athlete that I would like to recognize is Sammie Koch. Sammie is one of our female wrestlers and captain, and our coach, Coach Joe Jones, is here, and he's going to talk a little bit about her season, but she finished 5th in the state for female wrestling this year. So Sammie and Coach Jones, come on up.
Hey, good evening. This is Sammie. She came to me 3 years ago, and it was the first year that I really had girls wrestling. I've been at Birmingham since 1997 coaching wrestling. Back in the early 90s when I was first started coaching in Michigan, I tried to start girls wrestling, and they kind of pushed it away. So about 3 years ago, we got back at it, and the sport has quadrupled over the last 3 years. The first year Sammie was here, she made it to the state finals, didn't place. Second year, didn't place. Third year, which is this year, girls wrestling has grown so much. We went from having 300 girls the first year to having over 1,500 girls wrestle this year in the state of Michigan. Wrestling program, the girls wrestling is growing. We have approximately 10 young ladies wrestling for us this year, with a few coming in next year from the middle school. Over the whole country, the sport is just thriving with the female wrestlers. It's a great opportunity for young ladies to make it to college without paying for it. There's a lot of money involved in the sport. Sammie has been an amazing athlete, not just on the mat. She will have her 100th win before the second, third week of the season next year, which is amazing for a wrestler. 100 wins is a lot of wins, a lot of wrestling. She will place again next year, and we're working to get her at the top of the podium, which I do believe she can make it there. Not just as a athlete, but as a scholar athlete. She also received the All-State Academic Award with a 4.4 GPA.
Nobody's gonna mess with you, girls.
Thank you for paving the way for female athletes.
I'm okay with staying up here and recognizing all of these wonderful students. We have one last group to recognize, and that is our Groves Unified Basketball Team, who were undefeated this year in their season and in tournament play. So I'd like to invite Coach Flaherty and Coach Fish up to talk a little bit about the season, and all of the athletes to come up as well.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Smith, Dr. Roberson, for having us. So unified basketball, just to give you a quick definition, what it works is on the court at one time, we'll have 3 of our challenged students and 2 of our gen ed students working together and unified. We fall under the umbrella of Special Olympics. The model of Special Olympics is meaningful participation. So as much as I like being recognized as an undefeated season, and they've worked extremely hard to get there. Truly, the goal is that it's meaningful participation, that all of our student athletes get a chance to express themselves. I just think it was a wonderful season. Capped off, Dr. Roberson gave us our final pep talk before the last game and just talked to the students from her heart. She just said, just play with your heart. And I kind of might have caught her off guard, but she was wonderful. And I just think that was extremely meaningful, and I'm just so proud of our gen ed students that are a lot of my football players, and they take the backseat role on their Tuesday or Friday or whatever night it is and do a great job letting the other people get in the limelight and the spotlight. It's a partnership, myself, Molly Gazan, John Fish. I'm going to turn it over to John real quick. Can you say a couple words, and then maybe Molly. So, Mr. Fish.
Thank you, Coach. First and foremost, It's a true pleasure to be able to work with Coach Flaherty. This thing started 4 years ago, and then COVID hit, and we didn't have a team for a year, but we picked it back up, and we've been building every year, and the true success story was how our team came together this year against some very, very good opponents. And it all starts, of course, with our players and the support that they have from our student coaches. It's just been tremendous working with them. Then it comes down to the coaches, and it comes down to the support staff. And the coaches, beyond me, working with Coach Flaherty, got Molly Gazan here, who's been incredible in terms of spirit and communication with our team. And I don't want to forget the parents, because without the parents' support, you know, it's very difficult getting kids to and from games and practices and so forth. So the parents have all been great. It's been a great season. I don't know what more to say other than we're going to do it again, maybe next year. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
Molly?
I just want to say congratulations to all the athletes and the coaches. Just a tremendous program that this unified basketball is. I want to applaud the parents as well. Like, this would not work without them and their partnership. The athletic director, and Deidre and Tom, they have gone out of their way to make sure that we have transportation, that they have rooms for them to get set up in. Dr. Smith and the administrators at Groves have supported this from the start. I think this is four years. It was right around COVID when the first season was. And we talk a lot about the Groves Way. That is our motto at Groves. And the G stands for giving back. And these athletes, the student helpers, they are the epitome of the give back in the Groves Way. And it's just a tremendous thing, an opportunity for everybody at Groves, the community, the athletes, the coaches. So next year, I really encourage you guys to come out to a game. You will have a smile on your face the entire time. Yes, again, just congratulations, and thank you, everybody, for the support of this program.
I would like to echo that. I actually have seen several of the unified games, and I absolutely love them. I love that they cheer each other on. They even cheer for the other team. I like how Coach Flaherty has integrated the Gen Ed players who help them along. It's such a sight to see. I enjoy it.
Great. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Cool. Let's get a pic.
And that concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Roberson, and what an amazing group of recognitions tonight. At this time, we typically invite guests who are here for recognition to leave, and we take a 5-minute recess. So if there anybody that is here that would like to leave, now would be an appropriate time to do so. Yes. And as our guests are leaving, trustees, do we have any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda?
I would like to request that we move the quarterly bond update dashboard to the top of the business services report.
Okay. Anything else? I would like to note that in other, we do have Resolution 66 now that we'll be voting on tonight, our board goals,
Yes.
that were not in board docs earlier. So thank you, Tracy, for adding those. If we have nothing else, then I will turn it back over to Dr. Roberson for her superintendent report.
Thank you. So I wanted to.
Motion
We should make a motion
to, sorry.
Yeah, I can move it.
Okay.
To adjust the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
move that we put the quarterly dashboard at the beginning of the business services report.
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? So Tracy, 5-0. I'm not quite sure where trustees are. Okay. Turn it over to you, Dr. Oberson.
Thank you. So I wanted to start my report by just giving an update on items from the strategic plan that we have worked on since our last update, which was in December. So for the area of student achievement, one of our 4 pillars, we are in the implementation phase of 2 of the K-12 literacy review. We are also planning full-day 4-year-old preschool in 4 of our elementary buildings for the 24-25 school year. And we just recently sent out a survey. I know there was some conversation at the board table about whether parents really wanted a later start. And we did have overwhelmingly parents wanting a later start of 7:50. As well, in the area of student achievement, in terms of strengthening core academic instruction, we are starting the MTSS planning process with the math leadership team for K-8 mathematics. So just as a reminder, we are currently doing K-8 literacy for MTSS, and that is, MTSS is our multi-tier system of support that allows students to get intervention. We will be implementing that for K-8 for the upcoming year. Still under the pillar of student achievement, in terms of increase in college and career readiness, we have 2 CTE classes that we have approved: computer science and programming, and digital information and multimedia, as 2 new CTE courses. And I am going to move to our second pillar, which is culture of unity and well-being. We have been holding focus groups for students at the secondary level to better understand the culture and climate survey data. So as you know, we give an annual culture and climate survey to help with our goal for the strategic plan. We are holding focus groups to understand more about the nuances of the data, because numbers can only show so much. We want to make sure that we understand why students chose certain items the way that they did. So that is in the process. I think the last one is, tomorrow. Also part of culture and unity well-being, one of the things that we have, or one of the aims that we have, is to create more access to extracurricular resources and opportunities. The athletic handbook is completed now, which helps as a guide for creating that access. But the other thing that has been launched this year is esports. And that is a program that I think you guys are going to hear about a little later on. But it allows more students to participate in their own interests. And so I won't give out the complete spoiler, but we have implemented that program. As well, as part of the culture and unity well-being and increasing authentic engagement, as you know, I've implemented this Superintendent Student Ambassador Program. We've now had 2 meetings, and also our student ambassadors, 2 of them got to participate in interviews today for our special education director. So that we continue to lift up student voice. In terms of world-class talent for providing high-quality professional learning, we are currently forming a literacy league to support K-12 ELA professional development. It's kind of the same way we had our math power squad, where we had a group of teachers who had professional development around mathematics to support other teachers. We're doing the same thing for literacy. For responsible stewardship, one of the aims that we have is to generate revenue through viable sources. And this year, actually, we started 5 new junior kindergarten classrooms. We are expanding 1 more for the next school year because of interest. So those are just a few updates that I have from the strategic plan.
Can I ask a quick question? What's our timeline for the early start? Are we hoping to implement it next year? Or, because I remember the different scenarios we looked at, and it affects several other
So it will start next year, and the middle school's time will still be the same, and so will elementary.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a few other updates. I continue to be in the buildings, participating in March's Reading Month, so that's been fun, as well as participating in Soup with Soup, which is when I am able to sit in the lounge with teachers. I was recently at Bingham Farms, Derby, and also West Maple. I had the opportunity to visit at Berkshire with the French School of Detroit and their French inspector to look at the partnership between Birmingham Public Schools and the French School. We continue to value that partnership and just had a great time sharing all of the collaborations that we have with the French School of Detroit. And of course, Principal Klingscale helped with that as well, because we did that at Berkshire Middle School. Just recently, our website received an award through MSPRA, which is the Michigan State Public Relations Association. We were able to do a presentation with them, Zach Riley Kelly, Cortez Strickland, myself, and also Final Sight, which is the group that did our website. I also had the opportunity to talk to a group of business leaders from all different venues at Leadership Oakland, which is they had a special session on the education and workforce development, and I had the opportunity to share the growing opportunities and challenges of K-12 education with people from outside of the education field. I also have had an opportunity to continue to participate in legislative breakfasts. It's been a busy 3 weeks. It's just really to advocate for pre-K for all and how pre-K for all looks like in our school district. So those are just some of the updates. Oh, and I should say, our special education director, we had second round interviews for today for our special education director. Our Laura Mahler is retiring after many years here in the district. And so we will bring 2 people back to a final round after spring break. So those
Are you a part of those interviews? No.
Yeah. We usually don't have the person that's in the role in the interviews.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So those are my updates. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Roberson. Right now, we have opportunity for board comments.
I just wanted to mention that on March 6th, Dr. Roberson and Trustee Zammit and I had the opportunity to attend the OCSBA dinner, which was held at Oakland Schools Technical Center, their Northeast campus, which is in Pontiac. And if you've never been there, it's a pretty amazing setting. They have a construction technology project home that the kids who attend there for construction management and other trades actually work to build the house, and eventually they move it to another location, and it is affordable housing within, I believe it's within Pontiac, right? So, like, these kids get to drive by and say, I helped build that house. But it's all right on the grounds of the technical center while they're working on it. So we had an opportunity to tour that, and then we also got to see the rest of the facility, which, again, the Northeast campus isn't the one that our kids normally attend, but I understand it's very similar for our location in Royal Oak. And they have 11 different programs, including welding, cosmetology, and culinary arts. And the end of the evening, we finished our tours, and then the culinary arts students made our meal and served it to us. So it was, all I can say is, it's amazing to see the opportunities that we have with our CTE programming, and I would encourage all parents and students who are interested in that to, they have open house, parent open houses, and student open houses for you to explore that more. And then Luke, Trustee Joseph, and I attended our GRC meeting, and I'm going to report out on part of it, and he's going to report out on the other part. We did have a report from a staff member from the State Budget Office who basically gave us a summary of the executive recommendation for next year's budget, school aid budget. Revenues do look like they'll be down about 2.5%, but our foundation allowance is, the suggestion is $241 increase, which is about a 2.5% increase. And then obviously there is some new money for additional special education supports, early learning for 6,800 more students than we previously had, and literacy, including curriculum ranking committee, I think it was, and literacy coaches. And then there will continue to be support for mental health, student safety, transportation, and fingers crossed, the Healthy Meals for All program. So some good news on the horizon there.
Thank you.
That's it.
No, your turn, Susan. No, no, finish that.
Yeah, I was gonna, thank you. Yes, the GRC meeting for March was shortly after the State of the Union, so some of the items that were mentioned that's related to education from the State of the Union was the support to increase teacher salaries and improving access to early childhood education, and also to the commitment to fostering tutoring and summer learning programs and career and technical education. And also, just as a side note, Michigan hopefully will play a role in the U.S. House Education and Workforce Chair because the current representative from North Carolina has stepped down, and one of the two people have stepped up. I'm not sure who has been chosen yet, but one of them is a representative from Michigan, Tim Wahlberg, and the other one is from Utah. So let's go Michigan, right? And then on the state level, the MDE released a memo to update the Ready by Grade 3 to recognize and repeal the retention portion of other charges to the bill. And of course, there's a bunch of state legislation. The most important one is a redistricting update. So on March 1st, the Michigan Independent Citizen Redistricting Commission submitted its plan to the court, and the plaintiff had until March 8th to file objections, and the federal district court is scheduled to make a final decision by March 29th. And so after the final court decision, the parties will meet to confer somewhere in mid-April to determine a timeline for the remedial state Senate plans. And of course, so Trustee Hockham already discussed the budget, and there's a bunch of legislations that's being kind of on the move. And the one that, a couple of them that kind of stood out to me, one of them was the House Education Committee heard a testimony about adopt a model of program for instruction in organ and eye and tissue donation transportation program, which would be interesting for students to learn about that. And also the House Local Government Municipal Finance heard a testimony to create the Headley unfunded mandates, which require the state not to pass laws that are unfunded, which is already required by the Michigan's Constitution, but I guess they just want to reconfirm that. So those are the things that stood out to me. Thank you. And one other thing, just want to wish a safe spring break as it's coming, safe holidays to everyone. That's all. Thank you.
Mine's really short. It's just like a public service announcement. And I just wanted to remind everyone that as we're observing Women's History Month in March, and we're also observing reading, March is Reading Month, the Baldwin Public Library and each one of our libraries in all of our schools have done an outstanding job pulling out books that reflect and I think spotlight women in women's history. Baldwin Public Library has all kinds of programs, speakers, and so forth. Our librarians, didn't I read in the update that the award for libraries in several of our schools? So I just kind of was piggybacking on that. And then for reading, March is Reading Month, the programs Baldwin has for children ages, I think 1.5 all the way up to young adults, teens and then young adults, is amazing. They have films that go along with books. They have book talks. They have speakers coming in. So if you have a chance to take your child to the Baldwin Public Library, I would highly encourage it. Or also just check with your school media specialist. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is last week we started, those of our community members who are celebrating Ramadan, I say Ramadan Kareem. That means a blessed and fruitful Ramadan season to all of them celebrating. We wish them well. Public service announcement, over.
Thank you, Trustee Ashley. Anybody else have anything to say?
Just congratulations to Grove's varsity boys basketball team who won district championships. About 2 weeks ago, I think at our last meeting, I mentioned that we were hosting the district games here at Grove's, but they actually won their final game against Berkeley. So congratulations to them.
Bravo and congrats.
Like Amy said, we went to the OCSBA meeting at OTEC in Pontiac. It was a really good presentation. I asked one of the presenters afterward, what's one thing we can do to really get more programming going? And he said, get to the parents. Let the parents know more and more about it. Let them be aware of all the great things we have doing. So we're going to keep on trying to do that because there are so many good things going on at all 4 campuses. We had a meeting last week, Trustee McKinney and I, with the Athletic Advisory Committee. We are continuing to just plug away and get all of these handbooks in order and get all our regulations set, so we're making a lot of good progress. And yesterday, I attended the Curriculum Council meeting where Ms. Imperio's team presented 3 courses to the committee that will likely be coming before the board for approval soon.
Thank you, trustees. And I do want to mention, I think all of us, as trustees, have been invited to, I know, go to Beverly for March's Reading Month.
Yes, I'm going there Friday.
So I think several of us will be there on Friday, so thank you for that. And then I know that we'll be out after spring break visiting schools. And then BYA Touch a Truck is the first Saturday in May at Bingham Farms Elementary School. So that is my update from Birmingham Youth Assistance. Anything else, trustees, before we move into public comment? Okay. Now we move into public comment, and before we begin, I just wanted to read our policy on public comment. Because the Birmingham Board of Education values public meetings, not just meetings in public, we welcome public comment on school issues. Most comments can be concisely stated in 3 minutes, and the board respectfully asks that comments remain focused on the topic or issue and not on specific personnel. We welcome your comments but cannot discuss nor debate items not on our agenda. When asked to discuss non-agenda items, we can share facts but not engage in discussion. We need to follow laws regarding public notice on issues and be aware that other community members may have interest in the topic, but without proper notice may not be present to contribute. With that being said, I would like to call Mr. Robert Koch to the podium. And Trustee Angeloni will be filling in for Trustee Spencer tonight as secretary, so she'll be keeping time.
Excellent, thank you. And if I should go over my time, I have plenty of parents that are here interested in this particular topic if necessary to extend the time. But I should be brief. I'll be brief. So again, I want to continue from my last presentation and extend the parents' encouragement, applause, and appreciation to the collaboration that the board has with one another and continues to have with one another. I also want to share that a number of parents in our ongoing review of the curriculum expressed a variety of concerns, and that's what my topic will be primarily about. So we have a large and growing parent involvement that's growing around the curriculum, and the community population in our district is growing concerned, and some even expressed frustration and anger in some aspects of the curriculum, specifically around the instructional materials that were promoted around corporate products instead of teaching essential skills universally. There were also concerns around the curriculum's lack of balance on controversial items and issues that many felt violated the school district's curriculum policy. So to prevent schools from becoming platforms for corporations or controversial agendas, it's essential the board establishes clear boundaries regarding curriculum. We need a district-wide policy ensuring curriculum neutrality and appropriateness is spelled out in the policy. Several school boards are wisely setting clear boundaries for curriculum to prevent our schools from becoming agenda-setting centers for corporate products or controversial topics. Federal and state courts have strongly recommended excluding curricular items that promote corporate products specifically, political or controversial advocacy, bias or prejudiced content by including or excluding viewpoints, sexually harassing or age-inappropriate content, vulgarity, profanity, nudity, sexuality, drug use, violence, anarchy, or other inappropriate items. So I've been working with the curriculum office to address some of these concerns, and they've been fantastic. They've been incredibly collaborative, active, and cooperative. So we urge the board to value parental concerns and continue to uphold these high standards, especially given the recent budgetary challenges faced by other districts, such as Ann Arbor's loss of over 1,000 students. That's partly causing a $25 million operating budget shortfall. So I'll continue to make the board aware of these growing concerns our school district faces. As I shared, I'm actively working with the curriculum office, and I have a number of outstanding requests, so we look forward to our continued collaboration. In closing, I strongly urge the board to consider two things. The first, to look to update our overall district curriculum guidelines.
Mr. Koch, I'm sorry, you're over 3 minutes.
Do you not want me to finish the last sentence?
Finish the last sentence. But
Thank you.
Over by 20, okay, keep going.
So the two things in closing are to look to update the overall district curriculum guidelines and bring extra care around controversial content. And then the final, encourage more stakeholder involvement and gather meaningful data to justify curriculum changes and how curriculum goals are measured and met.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Koch.
Appreciate
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Our next public comment will be Ralph Hicknott.
Hi, as you mentioned, my name's Ralph Hickmott, and actually what I'm about to talk about has technically already been revealed by Dr. Roberson. I'm wearing the esports jersey. Specifically this year, we launched esports as a Birmingham-backed sport. At Derby, where I teach in fall, we piloted it, found great success in it. I've personally been running clubs for quite a while, like over 10 years, and it just started in the last couple of years with the support of actually Zach, the tech team, and this year specifically, the BEF, I have to thank quite a bit. They funded us a lot of money to go ahead and seed it at all of the middle schools and the high schools. So that is why it's flourishing this year, and next year, with the blessings and help of Aaron Frank and Tom Flint. Well, I think he's retiring, so hopefully the new AD will be on board with this, but we are going to launch it as an official varsity sport at the high school. And once that happens, we start opening up opportunities for many, many athletes. And I know it's interesting to say athletes under the name of gaming, but we're finding great success with it already. With the pilot program I'm running, we got kids from Seaholm, Groves, and Lincoln all working together. We have high-end teams so far. Can just name two, Splatoon and Super Smash. We have a varsity team, and we are officially, as of an hour ago, our last couple matches settled. We are number 2 in our league in Splatoon out of 40 teams, 35, 40 teams, and we are officially number 12 out of 200 teams in the league, and this is just the start. I hope to, at one point, come up here and recognize many of the athletes that are starting up right now and kind of continue it over the years as we bring another pillar of athletics to Birmingham. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Liz Schultz.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, thank you. I teach 7th grade language arts over at Berkshire Middle School, and I'm just here to say a couple of wonderful events that have taken place over the last couple months. My favorite, because I run it, is the spelling bee. And I know some of you may have, grown up thinking spelling bees are awful and scary, and they can be, but I try to make it fun for everyone. I myself was not the best speller growing up, but I am grateful that my mother forced me to do the school spelling bee because I can now check it off of a bucket list. I can say, what an experience, and I can tell my own children, hey, I did it, it's no big deal. Gianna Carr is a 7th grade student. She came in first at our school, and then she went and did, I think, 15th place at the county spelling bee, which is really good, and I was so proud of her. Another one of my favorite events that has taken place over the last few months is the Equestrian Club had a bake sale, and what just speaks to the inclusivity at Berkshire is that they thought about people with allergies, and they made sure that they had enough baked goods to raise money for people like myself who have celiac disease, people who have nut allergies, dairy allergies, et cetera, to be able to buy some baked goods. I myself bought 6 gluten-free cookies and regretted it afterwards, but I know that they raised an awesome amount of money for, is it Cantor, which helps race horses and show horses who are retired. And then I had, as did I believe some of our trustees, the opportunity to be a judge at the Amazing Shake, and which was a blast. I'm not going to talk too much about that because really the woman behind it is going to be talking next. And I just want to say that it gave a great opportunity for our students to practice public speaking, to gain confidence, and I think it allowed us as a community to come together and help those students see possibilities that they didn't know that they had before. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final public comment for this evening is Pam Luckin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to continue to spread just a little bit of good news. At Berkshire and kind of around the district, my topic is some of these great collaborative opportunities that we have going on. So one was the Amazing Shake. We had tons of judges, community members, Dr. Lindbergh was there, parents, and we did a ton of collaborating with Levy Middle School in Southfield and Notre Dame Prep to pull that off. So that was a really awesome thing. As I sat at the first ever regional competition and watched one of our students head up against these top students from all around the state, I was blown away by the way he could speak, things that he was taking right from the curriculum. I just was so impressed and thought it spoke wonderfully for our district. Some other great projects that are going on at Berkshire that I think are awesome collaborations are some passion projects. We have students coming back from Groves, from GSC, who are putting on programs at Berkshire, so one really awesome one
was we had 5 seniors who came over and put on a field day for our links and unified partners. So they spent some time figuring out their abilities, built a day just for them, and so that was really special. They thought field day is not always fun for everyone, and we wanted to make one for them. We had a great give back week with another group of students who put on community service projects open to all of Berkshire during C3, and then led into a presentation of getting involved at Groves. And then we are super looking forward to For the Girls, which we have girls from Groves who come and put on almost like a all-day retreat for 8th grade girls, getting them ready to go to high school and make good connections. And last, something really sweet that's happening this week is we identified a need to help some families, BPS families facing food insecurity. So between Berkshire families, a nice donation from SOS, and our bus drivers and our little community service club are putting together some things for them. So just some good news to share. Thank you for all you do. Oh, yeah, and yeah, Chartwell's, any of the food that is left, you know, that we might have to dispose of before break. So anyways, just some good news. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you, everyone. Now, we will
Real quick, I
Yes.
forgot to mention during my comments, there was a really nice college fair at Groves about a week ago. So I just wanted to shout out, I'm not sure if it was Mrs. Kondak who did that, but it was a lot of colleges represented. It was nice to see it, that it was well attended by parents and children as well.
Thank you. Now we will move into our consent agenda, which contains a personal report, 2 sets of minutes, and our financial statements.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second the motion.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please raise your hand and say
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Approved, Tracy, 7-0.
6-0.
6-0, sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Next, we will move over to Resolution 60 with Deputy Superintendent Dr. Lindenberg. Board of Education bylaws and policy updates.
Before you have Board of Education policy updates.
Yes,
I got it. Here. It's okay. Before you, Madam Chair, members of the board, before you have policy updates, they're pretty simple updates and just a quick addition by Mrs. Emmett today, and ask for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Trustees, are there any questions or comments?
I had just one question. The directory information section. So we put in this whole bit about the limited directory information, and I found myself a little confused. Is a student's photograph directory information or limited
It's
directory?
limited.
Okay, it's still up in directory information. Should we cross that through?
Let me pull it
Or is the limited directory information photographs that we take that has students in it versus something like a school picture? I just wasn't sure if there was a difference and if that was meaningful in this.
Making sure we're on the same page here, Ms. Emmett.
So just so everybody sees it, directory information, you know, the existing stuff that's there, the second bullet is the student's photograph. And then when we go down into the new, in blue, limited directory information, the board designates photographs, videos, or other media containing a student's image or likeness, and district-issued student electronic mail addresses as limited use directory information. So since student photographs are mentioned in both, I wasn't sure if that was.
Take me through the first question that you have again, Colleen.
Okay, so the existing language under directory information, right? We've got a bullet point list of things.
Right.
And the second bullet point is a student's photograph. And I don't know if that means they're photographed from their student ID or what. But then, when we get down into the new language that's in blue,
Right?
and the first line, the board designates photographs, et cetera, as limited use directory.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like contradictory.
I don't know.
Okay, the difference is in the directory information is the limited one is an update, and it's just talking about publications and others. And it doesn't have the basic directory information in the top bullet is simply, as you said, for IDs and just simple
Okay.
directory information, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And is this the same directory that parents have the option to opt out of?
You do have that, yes. Mhm.
Oh, go ahead. Trustees, one more question, and I thought this was worthwhile to discuss. 8001, so go to, what do we got here? We want to get to the 8000 series. Acceptable use. We talk about, there's a new section on artificial intelligence, and it says the superintendent may develop administrative regulations, et cetera, et cetera. Is it definitely may, or do we mean shall? Is that something that you discussed in the policy committee meeting?
We didn't discuss the word may or shall,
Okay.
but we will draft regulations for this, for artificial intelligence, yes.
Should we change that to be shall?
That would,
That's a meaningful difference. If we say the superintendent may do this, it just might not get done. But if we intend for it to be done, we should really be saying shall, shouldn't we? Trustees?
I don't know.
Do we have them at this point?
Well, for artificial intelligence?
No.
No.
I mean, not for artificial intelligence.
Well, no, but this is
Do we have AI programming that requires regulations at this point?
District has put together a task force on artificial intelligence comprised of teachers and administrators from across the district, and their guidelines, recommendations will be out by the end of this month.
Okay.
For everybody.
So is it something that we can go back and we can amend these once we have that in place? I mean, we can constantly update these bylaws at any time.
Once the
We can.
I see may and shall kind of as the same.
They're not. If we say may, we are saying the superintendent may do it. But if we say shall, we are definitively directing our superintendent to do it. Now, I don't know if as a board, we are definitively directing Dr. Roberson to do it, or if we are just putting it there like it may be done. And I've noticed in our policy manual, there are times when we use shall and there are times when we use may. So I think it's a meaningful difference, and I think that it's worth discussing.
I mean, the board makes policy, so I mean, it's solely up to you if you want to change the word to may to shall. I mean, the challenge with artificial intelligence is they have may in here because Miller Johnson's saying, this is new policy, and this is new things that are
So maybe
happening
that
right
was
now. And so
intentional.
Yeah.
I would assume it's intentional, yes.
I'm okay with that. That because it's so new, we're not entirely sure what we're asking for yet, and maybe we revisit this in some time.
I think we revisit it once Zach's committee has some actual recommendations for us to kind of utilize.
I would agree.
Okay.
Well, if, for what it's worth, I actually was in a meeting with a newspaper CEO this week, and she was saying that AI is really going to change the game and how media is used or reported. And so it may be worthwhile having someone from the outside profession weigh in on how we might develop some policies around it, just a thought.
And I have to believe Miller Camp, they're watching this too, obviously, with the way AI is.
And just add one thing, to Trustee Zammon's point, we are going to develop the AR, but if you read this line, it specifically tells what you're developing the administrative regulations on, generative artificial intelligence, large language models, other similar technology, and I think that's the piece that may be tricky for us as we're still learning about, you know, how artificial intelligence is going to be integrated into our schools.
So it's
that
really
part,
what are we going, okay.
in my opinion, that's how I look at it, is it's not so much will we do it, but this gives specifics on, you know, identifying the areas that we would actually target.
Good point. Okay, thank you.
Trustees, is there anything else on the bylaws and policy updates?
No, I'd just like to thank Trustee Sammie, who also did bring to our attention the change we made at the last minute to policy 1001, which very clearly was not even jiving with our current policy, so.
You mean we don't get paid?
We don't.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Sammie, for catching that. And thank you, Dr. Lindenberg and Trustee Hokumer and Ashlooney for serving on the policy committee. May I have a motion to move Resolution 60? Is there anything else? Did you have something, Dr. Robertson?
I move Resolution 60 to forward the acceptance of the the Board Education Bylaws and Policies updates.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 6-0. Thank you. Now I would like to turn it over to Mr. Teratuda for our business services reports, and we will start with the bond quarterly dashboard.
Yep, so I'll invite, excuse me, Scott Smith from Plant Moran Real Point to discuss the quarterly update on our bond projects.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for time on the agenda this evening. This is our quarterly dashboard, so this is our March update. The last time we did this was back in December, really prior to the holiday break. Are we able to bring this up on the screen, or would that be helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. As is traditional, we start with the upper left. This is just a breakdown of the bond. And again, just reminding everybody that there's multiple components to it. It isn't always construction. Lots of great things through technology, buses, furniture, equipment. Moving over to the right-hand side, this is our cost to complete through March the 12th. So our records are reconciled with the district through February, and anything else that we've put through. Notable changes are to our budget. So that budget is up $400,000 from the previous dashboard report, and that's due to earned interest received from the bond. Our commitments are up roughly $3 million. More than half of that is really the buses. We have not awarded a lot of work within the last 3 months. Our actuals are up $4.3 million from December, and our owner's contingency sits at just under $700,000. So our total budget is just under $197.5 million to date. Our charts graphically illustrating that, really the biggest change there is with the buses. That jumped up from 16% up to 37% as we just completed the second wave of bus replacements. Probably the biggest change from December is the inclusion of lots of new projects that are in design and planning. I will scroll down to that. And I will even try to blow this up. Over at Bingham Farms, we're currently in design meetings. We're in our first phase of design, schematic design, and just about to enter into our second phase, which is design development. So that is some renovations to the building, as well as a large addition for 6 new classrooms. And we are planning to start that work in the spring of 2025 with the new addition, and then renovations would occur over the summer, and the new addition would continue into the following year in 2026.
I'm sorry, Scott, did you say 6 new classrooms?
Yes.
Okay.
What it is, it's basically a 4 or 5, so three grades per, or 3 classrooms per grade.
Okay.
Corton Elementary, we're in a similar phase with the design there, and those renovations are scheduled to occur next year in the summer. Pembroke Elementary, later we'll be talking about a proposal from Structure Tech to design some of the work there, but we'd like to move forward with replacing the parking lot there next summer. BCS has some selective roof replacements. Seaham High School, we are going to be replacing the parking lot off of Cranbrook in front of the athletic stadium next summer, and also some selective roofing there above the auditorium. At Groves High School, again, a little bit more roof replacement above the pool. We're also in design over at Midvale to replace their chiller. That's a mechanical piece of equipment that provides cooling to the building. And then over at the transportation lot, parking lot replacement there as well. Current projects, again, winter's usually a slower time, but here in Birmingham, there's usually a lot of work still going on, particularly at the high schools. For our Ox Gym, we're really all but trying to just close that job out at this point. The auxiliary gym over at Groves, as we said at the last meeting, had a great grand opening in February, so we're winding that project down as well. Over at Seaham, we're wrapping some things up with the athletic fields. Our biggest task right now is getting the baseball field up to ready for opening day here in the first part of April, and then continuing on with the practice field. We started work at BCS back in February with some selective work in the corridors, and there's going to be a lot more work that's unfolding here over spring break with work in the pool as well as in the kitchen, and all that work will continue through the summer in preparation for next fall. And then again, over at Groves and Seaham, we've been working since the first of the year, particularly remodeling bathrooms in some of the corridors here at Groves, and similarly over at Seaham in the bathrooms. That work will again continue through the spring and through the summer. Groves will start doing some work in the west parking lot starting in May, around when the seniors depart, and that will do the west side this summer, and then the following summer we'll be doing the area here in front of the EAC and in front of the tennis courts. And then on my second page, just some photos from around the district. The focus really on this one was around the Groves new auxiliary gym. But here you can see some of the new flooring and patterning going on at Groves within the corridors. Some of the new toilet rooms, so we've got nice new hard-tiled walls using the school colors. Over at Groves, you may have noticed, but the climbing wall is now in place. We've got batting cages in the new gym, the golf simulator, just another shot from the second floor with the new running track. Similarly in Seaham, some toilet room renovations, again using their color. You can see a couple images of the baseball and softball fields as well. That turf's down. The softball field is complete and we're ready for action there. And over at the baseball field, they're building the bleachers as we speak, getting that part ready. And then as I mentioned, excuse me, over at Covington, we did start some work over on midwinter break with painting the gym. You can kind of see we've got 2 colors going on, so we painted the truss a black color to kind of complement the ceiling in white, give it some a different look really than it used to have. But we'll continue renovations of the gym moving into the summer with new basketball hoops, new bleachers, and paint on the walls. And that really concludes my update if there are any questions.
I do have a quick question, and it's probably not a part of the bond, but when are we going to do the parking lot at Groves that's been affected by the winter months? Is that through a different department?
It's through the bond. You're talking about which one, the west side or the east side?
The west side.
The west side is this starting in May.
Oh, okay.
Yep, starting in May through the bond.
Okay.
Yep.
And at the district PTA meeting last night, the C-Home president mentioned that all of the C-Home dads are reaching out to see if they could rent out the golf simulator. So that is a hot commodity at the C-Home community right now, so.
But the answer was no.
The answer was no. That is correct. The answer was no, but.
Revenue generator.
So, I mean, but the auxiliary gyms are beautiful and just nothing but compliments out in the community, so thank you.
Great.
Trustees, any other questions for Scott? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Now we will move to Resolution 61, Series 4 bond sale.
Yep, so I'll also invite up Jim Crowley from Miller Canfield if the board has any questions. This resolution in front of the board is the fourth in our series of bond sales. So we passed our $195 million bond back in 2020. We've issued the bonds over a set of several series, and this is the fourth in that set, the final series that we'll be issuing of these bonds. Jim, is there anything else you wanted to add about the resolution in particular, or any thoughts?
No, I mean, it's the same resolution we've done for the last 3 series. This is the fourth and final. Just gives us authorization to issue these bonds. So the board's seen this 3 other times.
Trustees, any questions? May I have a motion to consider Resolution 61?
I move to push forward Resolution 61, the Series 4 bond sale.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor of supporting Resolution 61, Series 4 bond sale, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
6 to 0. Thank you. Resolution 62, 2024, high school furniture procurement.
Okay, so in front of the board is a resolution for procurement of furniture under the bond at each of the high schools, so at Grove, Seaholm, and Lincoln Street. Scott can probably add a little bit more color, but at a high level, we have been working diligently with building administration, the principals, teachers, individuals from various departments to figure out what they need in terms of furniture, what they would like to see, and what we can accomplish within the budget that we've set with the bond. Those have all been very fruitful conversations. Our total budget for furniture procurement for Groves, Seaholm, and Lincoln Street in total is a little bit under $2 million. We'll be utilizing a couple of design firms to help procure this through cooperatives, which is allowed under the policies of the board. This did go in front of the Bond Oversight Committee as well and is being recommended.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or comments?
What do we do with our old furniture?
We asked that question.
Since it's been asked, I'll answer. Our old furniture will go through a process. We're working through exactly how we are going to attempt to either sell or donate or do what we can to find new life with the furniture we do have first.
That's good. That's nice. I've had furniture donated before from a corporation, and it was really nice to get it for free. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to consider Resolution 62?
I move to consider Resolution 62, 2024 high school furniture procurement.
Support. Thank you. All those in favor of supporting Resolution 62, 2024 high school furniture procurement?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Kevin, Resolution 63, Structure Tech 2025 paving recommendation.
Okay, in front of the bond is a recommendation to amend our contract with Structure Tech. You may remember from our last regular meeting, we did the same thing with roofs. Structure Tech basically specializes in 2 things, roofs and paving. They've been engaged on several projects around the district in both of those regards. So this amendment is specifically for Pembroke and the transportation lots, the engineering, design, and construction management thereof. Again, this went in front of the Bond Oversight Committee and is being recommended.
I just want to raise something that I did not know. Over on, is it Howard Street or Transportation, Howard? store going in and out of, 2 and 3 and 4 times a day. It is a big lot, it's a big bill, but it is a necessity. I mean, there's no way to avoid not doing that paving.
Yes, it would be the appropriate choice considering we're replacing and owning our own fleet at this point.
Trustees, any other comments or questions? Could I have a motion to consider Resolution 63, the Structure Tech 2025 paving recommendation?
I move to consider Resolution 63, move it forward. It's the Structure Tech Company 2025 paving recommendation.
Support.
Thank you. All those in favor of supporting Resolution 63?
Aye.
Thank you, 6-0. Kevin, I will turn over Resolution 64, Durham Schools Services Transportation Contract Amendment and Extension for 2025-2028.
Okay, so this one's been teased to the board for a number of weeks now, but we finally have it in front of you. Over the last several months, I have been in negotiations with our transportation service provider, so Durham School Services. We've been in operation with them for a number of years, and we have a current contract that ends next school year. Under the terms of our contract, they were allowed to come back and renegotiate rates because of a decrease in service routes. So we engaged in that over several months. Initially, they had wanted just to extend their contract with a much higher rate. We were able to find a common middle ground. And ultimately, the contract put in front of you does extend the contract for 3 years. So through school year 2028, it adds 3 years to the life of our current contract. However, we were able to negotiate a structure that allows us to keep the budget of transportation relatively flat.
For the next 3 years?
For the next 5 years. Say again,
Is it
please?
because we're using our own fleet?
Correct. So as their rates increase, we're being given a credit for the buses that we own, and that offsets each other, so that we'll be operating transportation, a projected estimate, roughly at the same equivalent level as we are at this time.
So from current until 2028?
Should be relatively consistent, yes.
Okay.
But didn't it represent an 11% increase?
The rates did increase 11% in that first year.
Okay.
Fortunately, it is being prorated from the point, basically the beginning of this year. So we did save half of the year on that 11% jump. But again, it is sort of being offset by the credits that were being awarded.
So Kevin, this precedes you. I've been on the board for almost 6 years now, and I know that we've had some service issues with Durham in the past, and so you may not be aware of all that, but I know that we've had a reduction in routes, but it would be nice to see what type of survey satisfaction we're getting, or, complaints each year as part of the contract. Just, I know, it might be too late to add it now, but it would be helpful to have that service component to it, because it is something that has come to us before several times in the past.
I think too, if the first day of school, I think this was the first year where we had 0 busing complaints. I think Dr. Roberson mentioned.
So let me just clarify. 0 busing complaints that came up here.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for a principal who might have gotten a bus complaint from a parent, but to your point, so this is my 3rd year. The first 2 years were horrendous, to say the least.
Yes.
I have to give credit to Dr. Lindenberg, who helped Durham find new management to oversee our contract, to assist with that. And so we have seen much better results, from Durham because of that.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay.
Mr. Tertuda, can I ask a question? Well, actually, it's 2 questions. So are we more successful at keeping our bus drivers now? Because I know that was also an issue where, we couldn't always even find the people we needed to drive the buses.
So we're currently operating close to what they would consider full staffing for normal daily transportation routes.
Okay.
In speaking with Lawrence Davis, who is the operations manager for transportation, he's constantly working on a pipeline of new drivers, which is quite a lengthy process to get people trained and certified to do so. So he's always working on that. Where we continue to struggle and probably always will struggle just because of the general atmosphere of finding transportation is just the extracurricular component.
Right. Okay, and then my second question is, so, like Trustee McKinney, I've been on the board almost 6 years. We've always used Durham during that time. We're now extending their contract 3 years. So would we consider putting this out to bid after this contract ends in 3 years?
I think having been with the same company for an extended period of time, it is probably wise and prudent at the end of this contract to evaluate all options, especially as we will own our entire fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Would one of those options be to hire our own bus drivers?
Would be on the table, certainly.
Yeah, if it makes business sense.
Years ago, we did.
Oh,
Yeah, we sure do.
thank you.
Any other questions regarding Resolution 64?
No.
Could I have a motion?
I move for the approval of Resolution 64 to extend the Durham School Services Transportation Contract.
Support.
That's okay. Ditto.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Great, 6-0, thank you.
Take the ditto.
Okay, last but not least, Kevin, Resolution 65, our General Operating Fund Budget Amendment 2 and the Special Revenue Fund Budget Amendment 1.
I hope you guys like the sound of my voice. It's been a long night. So once it comes up on your screen, I will begin, but today will be probably the board's second, some of you third time seeing the proposed budget amendment for the general fund. This will be our second amendment. And then at the springtime, we often take an opportunity to revisit some of our special revenue funds. So this is the first amendment for a couple of those as well. For the community, I like to attach this primer just to sort of remind everybody where we are in time and what we do. Typically throughout the year, we try and amend the budget in order to maintain transparency and fiscal stewardship as part of our strategic plan. The first amendment done back in the fall, second amendment here now in the spring, and then we will have a final of all funds in June, as well as an original set for the upcoming school year. So in this particular amendment, what has changed from the first one is that the fall count has been completed and audited, and that's now included on our state aid reports. So we made adjustments based on that final tally, and that does affect our foundation as well as some other state aid components. We've had revisions to interest earnings and community ed revenues, as well as amending those special revenue funds that I mentioned earlier. So we'll get the easy stuff out of the way. The first section will just be recommended budget changes on our special revenue funds. And we will begin with food services. So our food service fund, just to remind you, operates our food service program, breakfast and lunch at all the districts. The way that this is structured and put in front of you is that 22-23 actuals is on the farthest left, all the categories of revenue and expenditures there in the middle, and then the original budget followed by this first amendment, and then the changes between the two. So what you'll notice in food service is that in revenues, the total revenues did not change very much, just a slight decrease of about $14,000. However, the makeup of those dollars has changed because back in June, as you'll recall, we did not realize or did not have conclusive evidence that it would be free meals for all students. So we were anticipating that the bulk of revenue would come from student-paid meals. With free meals for all, that does allow us to have, it doesn't change the makeup, which now the state is the primary source of food service revenue. On the expenditure side, not a lot has changed here. Total expenditures actually decreased by about $70,000. The main component of that is that transfers out or indirect cost. That's just a calculation based on food service components, and based on that calculation, we did have to revise that transfer out number. So the expenditures on this side did decrease, but it's also affecting general fund because it is a revenue component of the general fund. So net change in fund balance went from 182,000, a improvement to $126,000 use of fund balance in food service, leaving a fund balance at June 30th of a little over $500,000. I do include in this that excess cost threshold, so that is a cap that the state puts into place. There's a maximum limit of fund balance that you can keep in your food service fund. If you exceed that number, the state comes in and basically tells you have to spend it, because what the state wants to do is have you continuously improve your food service program. So whether it's buying new equipment, new ovens, new stoves, improvements around the facilities or what have you, they do make you spend down your excess fund balance. So as you can see, we are not required to do that. We still have a healthy fund balance in the program, and we have not broached that excess cost threshold. Our next special revenue fund is the Early Childhood Center and We Care Special Revenue Fund. So this is our preschool and toddler program at Midvale, as well as the We Care Center at Groves. In terms of revenue, total revenue hasn't changed significantly, just a small increase of about $15,000. And I'm going to touch a little bit more on revenue after I get through the whole component. Expenditures also remained relatively unchanged, a decrease there of about $30,000. What you will notice, however, is in the original column for ending fund balance, it did put the Early Childhood Center into a deficit position, which is not a position that it's really allowed to be in. And the reason for that is the original budget back in June had anticipated a higher beginning of year fund balance. So after the audit, after the books were closed, that number did end up being a little bit less. Based on that original budget, it did put it in a deficit position. So in order to fix that, this fund does need a infusion of cash, which is that $120,000 of transfers in from a fund that we will determine as we sort of close out the year and are looking at our holistic financial picture.
And to be clear, all of the revenue here is from tuition.
Correct.
Okay.
Our last special revenue fund that we will look at is the Community Council Special Revenue Fund. So this fund oversees our before and after school kids program, as well as preschool at each of our elementary buildings. So the revenue here is from tuition into those programs. Based on our estimates and discussing with the department, we anticipate an increase of about $377,000 from the original budget. And in total expenditures, you'll notice that the total group of expenditures increased by about $825,000, primarily in salaries. And just to put this into perspective, last year, the 22-23 actuals, you'll notice the total expenditures was only $663,000. The reason for that is we did receive a little bit under $2 million in child care stabilization grant funding. So about $1 million of this program's expenditures was actually moved over to the general fund to account for that. So there was an equal portion of revenue and expenditures related to child care stabilization grant. So with that being said, the true number of expenditures last year was actually $1.6 million thereabout, which when you put into context of Amendment 1, which is 1.8, doesn't make that $800,000 seem as big of a difference. The original budget did not necessarily completely account for the full move over of all of those salaries and wages. So we did feel it was important to amend this budget to correct that. At the end of the year, though, this fund will have an ending fund balance of a little over $600,000. All right, so what is up next is our general operating fund and the recommended budget changes for Amendment 2. Anytime we talk about the general fund, we always put in this enrollment trend just because I think it always helps paint the story of where we were 10 years ago, where we are now. Our current, this track of enrollment is tracking student FTE, so FTE stands for full-time equivalent. It doesn't necessarily mean number of, noses in chairs, but it does represent the proportion of students actively attending. So that 7,310 is the student FTE for the blended enrollment. Again, just as a reminder for everybody listening, the blended enrollment is 90% of this fall's count back in October, 10% of last spring's. And so that number represented by the asterisk is that blended enrollment that I mentioned at the very beginning has been updated in our state aid. We'll start with revenue, changes to our assumptions from the original budget. So in local revenue, we increased our interest earned on cash in bank, so our investments have been doing better than we originally anticipated back in June. We adjusted that upwards by about $248,000. Community education, many of you received that packet from Community Ed of all the various programs that go on at the district. They are having a very good year, so we increased, based on discussions with them, their anticipated revenues by about $291,000. Changes in state revenues, the state aid adjustment, which follows the final fall count, we adjusted upward $650,000. Special ed 51C, we get an adjustment in February primarily to account for last year's spending. That is basically sort of placed upon us in the February state aid. That was an upwards adjustment of $570,000. And then the next two items are related to the state pension fund. So as you'll recall, the state provides the district money to help offset the unfunded liability in the Michigan educators pension system. And there's two components. There's a matching component, which is just the district is a pass-through entity for that. So we had to add $555,000, which comes in on state aid, and we have really no say over. So it comes in, we pay it out. And then there's another component of the pension system which comes in and helps to offset the total amount of dollars that the district is spending in order to maintain the pension system. So that the state is basically helping us not have to continue to absorb additional costs depending on how the system is doing. So that increased by a little over $500,000. Finally, in state revenue, we did get a one-time categorical that appeared in our January state aid, but we're including it now. For the educator compensation categorical, again, one time, its section code is 22L. That was $335,000. And then finally, we just included a change in transfers. We revised our center program budget transfer into the general fund by a little over $200,000. Numerically, this is how it is all put together. So in total, our change from Amendment 1 to Amendment 2 was an increase of a little over $3.6 million. On the flip side, assumption changes for expenditures. We are always reviewing wages and turnover and new positions for various reasons. So we updated our estimate on wages and benefits by about $700,000. The matching component you saw in revenue for the state aid pension was $555,000. We received higher allocations of our grants, that's $183,000. And then as I mentioned before, the 147C, that's the code for that matching component of the pension pass-through. We have to match revenues to expenditures, and as we were reviewing the budget, we had to make an adjustment to make sure that those two numbers were matching. So that was a revision of $1.5 million. Again, to put numbers to all the assumption changes that we just put together, total expenditures did increase by about $3.2 million. And then how that impacts fund balance. In our first amendment, well, say go back to our original amendment, we had a net change in fund balance predicted of a use of fund balance a little under 1.7 million. In our first amendment, our estimate increased that anticipated use by about $1 million, and now this final, or the second amendment here tonight, is an improvement in that first amendment estimate downwards to $2.3 million. So our fund balance as a percent of expenditures is 11.2%, estimated as of June 30th at this time. So then I just include this slide to put everything into a holistic picture. You'll see down in the bottom right corner, the improvement from Amendment 1 to Amendment 2 was a little over $400,000. And then finally, just a quick future outlook for the board to be aware of what the business department and administration has on their plates, what we're looking at, what we're thinking about. So this has been mentioned before, but the governor's executive budget was released, and there are a few major components in that worthy of bringing to the board's attention. 31AA is a state categorical for mental health and safety. Currently, it's one-time funding that ends basically at this point when we run out of money. The governor is hoping to make that an ongoing source of funding. With the expansion of universal preschool, as Dr. Roberson pointed out, the governor does want to accelerate the timeline to make that free for all sooner rather than later. But at this point, we are unsure of how that is going to play out and how that will affect us. As the board just approved, our transportation contracts does allow our transportation budget to remain flat, so I think that's a big win for our fiscal stewardship over the next few years. And then enrollment predictions are going to be a bit of a challenge this year. We are in a fortunate position this year that we're probably one of a very handful of districts that actually saw an increase in our enrollment, which was not the trend that we had predicted based on statistical modeling, which is what traditionally would be used to help with estimating enrollment. So with the expansion of junior K and with a lot of our facilities, we're, hearing word that students who who were originally interested in private institutions are now choosing our district over that, just making enrollment predictions a little bit more challenging than it has been in prior years. At this point, it was probably wise for the board, as I think was discussed earlier, that an anticipated 2% increase year over year in our foundation is probably going to go back to being the norm for the foreseeable future as well. And then just the last couple of budget items is, inflation is real, so we have to continue to look at all of our spending in order to address any deficit that the district is incurring. So with that, that'll conclude this budget amendment update for tonight. Are there any questions that I may answer at this time?
Yes, I have a quick question, and this may sound like a very silly question. So at the end of this school year, do we go back to zero-based budgeting? Or no?
I'm not exactly sure the best way to answer that question. So our budgeting process, so zero-based budgeting is a process. And in working with Josie, my director of finance, and those in each of the different departments, I know zero-based budgeting is something that's very important. It's basically working from zero to have a budget in place that is essentially zero going forward. But the reality is it's really principles-based, and it's what are our highest needs for compliance, what do we add on as wants, what are we as a district prioritizing. So we are having those conversations at the same time as we are addressing our structural deficit to balance the two and make sure that we are not having let's say, significant disruptions within our district.
Kevin? You mentioned that enrollment prediction was particularly tricky this year. Do you think it will be tricky again in the coming year, or a little easier?
And I can answer that too. The state of Michigan has declining population. If you look at statistically, we would assume if we were just looking at it from a standpoint of birth rates that our enrollment would go down. Because of what happened during COVID, where we lost 600 students during that time period, there are a lot of students in the private schools that don't, it doesn't fit that statistical model. So it was still going to be tricky in the sense of, yes, our enrollment went up this year. We're excited that our enrollment went up this year. Will that be a trend or not? Because we cannot rely on just birth rates. We would have to rely also on continuing to pull students from the private schools.
I know we touched on this at our last study session, but can you give us information soon about where our student increase came from? Pre-K, the different grade levels, how many came back from privates?
Yes, I can't give you where they all came from, but I can tell you exactly what grade levels, what schools.
Okay.
I can give you that information.
Yeah, okay.
So we'll do that for the next session.
Can I ask one other question? So, obviously, part of our future look is supposedly in 2025, the state will have paid off the unfunded liability for the pension. Is that correct?
The prediction, so there's two components. There's the pension component, and then there's the OPEB,
Yeah.
which is basically everything else.
The healthcare and all that?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that component is supposed to be fully funded very soon.
Okay.
The pension portion is still probably 15 years.
Okay. So if the healthcare portion of it gets fully funded, then does that eliminate some of those pass-throughs that we receive now, or it's not really going to help us? Because the bigger pass-through is for the pension.
I believe the hope is to do what can be done for both systems.
Okay.
I cannot speak to that, let's say, in great detail. We have the same hope. I think that it will do so, but it's also going to depend on a variety of factors.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin, I do have a question. For the community ed revenue, we're up $291,000. Is that taking into consideration summer camps, or is that just camps and activities that we've had from the beginning of the school year till now? So are we counting that summer camp offerings or the summertime offerings in that 291,000, or could we potentially see an additional increase in revenue?
So the way that it works is we have captured essentially last summer, since that starts July 1.
Got it. Okay.
And then goes all the way through. So this is really capturing the last summer, sort of an increased participation rate over the course of this year, and then their projected end for the spring.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hi, I just have a comment, it's not a
Sure.
question. Thank you for all of the presentations that you made today.
You're welcome.
You're allowed to drink water, by the way.
I know, I left it up there.
No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, on a side note, obviously, you're new to this position, so a lot of things were inherited from prior events. But obviously, fiscal responsibility is our biggest, or one of our biggest things that we are concerned about as board. Every single one of us would address that. And obviously, being at the level we are, and it's not really where we want to be. We all agree. So we just have to work harder and to, hopefully when we present the June 30th year end, ready for the auditors, hopefully, cross our fingers, it looks better. I mean, obviously this is like an interim audited, so in a way, that's really the only good news to me. It's not like a final, you know, black and white numbers, but it is something that hopefully we can improve. And that's something that if there's anything that any one of us can help, please let us know, because that's what we're here for. And whatever it takes, you know, to do it. But thank you. Thank you for your hard work, and to Dr. Robertson as well, and all the team. There's a lot of effort taken into this, honestly. And just to see these numbers, it takes a long time to get this done. So, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Trustees, anything else? I agree with Trustee Joseph. I mean, obviously, as a board, we all want a balanced budget, but I appreciate the responsibility. We're all, your team and Dr. Roberson and CLT and our board are being responsible to putting the needs of our students first. So I look forward to seeing better numbers in June as well, but I appreciate the diligence and the responsibility we're taking, putting the needs of our students first, so thank you. Trustees, could I have a motion to move Resolution 65, General Operating Fund Budget Amendment 2 and Special Revenue Fund Ballot Budget Amendment 1 forward?
I move that we approve Resolution 65, General Operating Fund Budget Amendment.
Support.
All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
5-1. Tracy, thank you.
No, there was one more
We have
resolution.
one more. Our next resolution, the final resolution of this evening, are our board goals aligned with our strategic plan. And just for the community's sake, we have been working on this, not only in the studies. Thank you, Kevin, I apologize. Sorry. We worked on this on a board retreat and have had work groups together, so these are not a surprise to anyone, but our board goals are in the full Resolution 66, but just to recap, one is regarding our strategic plan, student achievement, responsible stewardship, board development, and safety and security.
I move forward Resolution 66 to be approved. The board goals align with BPS Strategic Plan 2022 through 2027.
Do we have a second?
Support.
All those in favor? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Is there any discussion?
Trustees, I just wanted to let you know, we have had some good meetings putting these together. I felt like we had a lot of good discussions, and I liked all of our back and forths. I did want to let you know I will be voting no on this, only because I do like some of the goals in here. I do wish that our financial goal was more aggressive. That's something we've discussed. And I do wish that the goal I proposed about live streaming and recording our study sessions was in here. So just for those two reasons, I will be voting against, but I wanted to just let you know that I really did appreciate all our discussions, and I am supportive of the other goals.
But if you're supportive of the other goals, I mean, you can state what you don't like about it, but as you said, these goals are aspirational, and many of them roll over successively. And, I mean, the spirit of board goals is that we work together as a team of 8 to make them happen.
And I will continue to work together to make these goals happen. But because I am not fully in support of all of the goals in there, I feel the need to vote no on this one. But I will keep supporting them, because we are a team of 8 and we move forward on the majority vote.
Okay, any other discussion?
I would just like to say that I can respect trustee Zammett's position as someone who was the outlier in a vote at our last board meeting. I wasn't in total agreement with everything that was in, I believe it was Resolution 58, so I respect that. Also, just to note that, for the record, that I was not in attendance at the study session where all this discussion took place, so I'm sorry that I wasn't a part of that to hear it prior to today.
Actually, I just want to say there was a pretty good discussion back and forth, especially with the finance. I mean, there was a lot of changes. I mean, I don't want to get into the specific on finance, but I think overall, I mean, I'm supporting this. I'm going to support these goals as presented. And I feel confident that, I really have confidence in our leadership, you know, the way it's, I mean, as I stated earlier about the budget, you know, if this was the final budget, I would have voted no, which I've stated that before. But it is an interim budget. So really, it's kind of meaningless. But the same, you know, but to work to improve our finances is critical, and I feel passionate about it, and I will do everything it takes while I'm serving here to make sure that we achieve a clear and concise, balanced budget. It's just going to take some time.
Thank you. I do want to say, just for the public's awareness, that we did spend an all-day retreat back in December, as well as several study sessions discussing these goals.
Yes.
So thank you for your feedback, but this wasn't just discussed in one study session. We discussed these in multiple. So I'm very happy that we can move this forward this evening and get these goals on paper, share with the community, and work together collectively to move forward. So we do have a motion, or no, I'm sorry.
And we had support.
So
It's time to vote.
No, we don't have a
I think we're
motion.
still having a discussion.
We didn't?
And I will, you know,
We had motion and we had a support.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we did.
So we just have a vote, but we haven't called the vote yet. Colleen mentioned that she would be voting. So all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Would it
Thank
be
you.
okay if I leave before this?
You can.
I have to leave.
Trustees, is there any other comments or discussion for this evening?
Well, we've got spring break Friday.
Yes, we do.
Thursday, Friday, 3:45. Most schools. Hope everybody has a safe spring break, enjoys time with families and friends, and relaxes, and gets re-energized to come back for the last couple of weeks of school.
Well, with that, thank you, Trustee Angelini. We will adjourn at 8:55.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.